welcome all of you to this amazing session of Knowledge Cafe that we are having with Arpan Foundation and Harish and Roshan. So, moving ahead, I'll just give a brief of Red Dot Foundation and I'll introduce everyone. So, Safe City is a platform that crowdsources personal stories of sexual harassment and abuse in public spaces. This data, which may be anonymous, gets aggregated as hotspots on map indicating trends at a local level. The idea is to make this data useful for individuals, local communities, and local administration to identify practice that causes behavior that leads to violence and work on strategies for solution. Safe City aims to make cities safer by encouraging equal access to public spaces for everyone, especially women, through the use of crowdsourced data and technology. So we basically work at three levels, that is individual awareness and action, community engagement, and institutional accountability. So my colleague Jyoti must have posted it in the chat box. You can log in via the same link provided by her, and you can check out our website and even fill the reports, be it anonymous or you can also put in your information. So before starting with anything, I'll just would like to give some community guidelines. So I request everyone to put their microphones off and videos off during the conversation so that the whole session can go fluently. And I'll request everyone to put their questions in the chat box as speakers will address all the questions one by one. Also, there may be cases when some of the situations or comments may be triggering for one or the other person. So just take a deep breath and have a glass of water and join us back. So I hope we have a good conversation ahead. Before moving ahead, I would like to introduce Arpan to everyone. Arpan Foundation is an NGO addressing the phenomena of child sexual abuse in the country. They provide prevention and intervention services to children and adults, irrespective of their socio-economic background, gender, sexuality, caste, religion, and political affiliation. So this was all about both the organizations. Now I would just like to share, I would introduce you guys to our speakers, that is Harish and Roshan. Harish is an equal rights activist and an active voice for a number of social causes and possibly the first male survivor of child sexual abuse to appear on national media. He has listened to over 7 lakh survivors and has co-founded the Jimmy Foundation for furthering the mission. Moving ahead, Roshan is a journalism graduate from Wilson College, University of Mumbai, and also holds a postgraduate diploma in liberal arts from Ashoka University. He has worked for newspapers, magazines, and non-profits. He is passionate about sexual health and wants to set up a comprehensive sex education for young Indians. Welcome everyone. Welcome Harish and Roshan. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. I think it's also important that we mention Child Safety Week. Once again, childsafetyweek.in. Please go to the website. There are resources, there are webinars and other activities that are happening all through the week. So even there are some that are left, and I would encourage you to join all of them. Roshan and I have known each other for little less than a decade, and we have not been fast friends, but we have had the utmost respect for each other, and we have been close whenever we meet. You know, जब एक महीने के बाद जब भी मिलते हैं तो उसका मिलन का ये अलग होता है. So we're going to have a casual conversation about some truths that Roshan and I both have faced. And while having this conversation, it's also important to let you know that this is getting recorded. So please leave your comments on the chat box. If you have a question, leave it on the chat box. So we will take it up from there, and we will not take your names while we read out those questions. So that makes it much easier just in case this gets when this gets broadcast, there shouldn't be a problem of us taking any names. Roshan and I, both of us will be careful that we don't take names when we are reading questions from the chat box. So there is something that binds Roshan and I, both of us. It's the fact that we both are not female, uh, and we both are cisgender male. uh, as in cisgendered se matlab hai when the nurse when we were born, the nurse said mubarak ho ladka hua hai, and we grew up to tell that hum log ladke hain. So that is cisgender, and we both are males, and we both are survivors of child sexual abuse. um, there is this common myth that survivors of child sexual abuse are females, and that is the only gender that gets affected. That's the only sex that gets affected by child sex abuse. So we would be engaging in a conversation with each other, and while engaging in a conversation with each other, I'm sure that there could be some questions that you have that might get answered while we are having this conversation. Uh, so Roshan, what are the while growing up, uh, my my age was 7 when I was sexually assaulted. What was your age? And we both might be very casual while we are speaking about this. Doesn't mean that you can catch hold of any male survivor and get into a casual conversation with the person. Please don't take it literally. We have camaraderie with each other, and that's why we are casual with each other. So Roshan, what is my age was 7 when I went through sexual assault. What was your age?
Yeah, firstly, thanks, Harish, for that introduction. And yeah, rightly said that I feel very comfortable with Harish, which is why I agreed to have this conversation with him. But that also doesn't mean that it's okay for anyone to have this conversation with any survivor or anyone for that matter. Consent is always important. So, uh, in case you guys want to talk about this, make sure that you ask people. Uh, Coming back to your question, Harish, I don't remember exactly, but it was around when I was 10 years old when I started realizing that something is happening to me, and I I didn't particularly think at that point that it's wrong, but it was weird. It was not something that somebody spoke of. It was not something that I saw everywhere happening to me. It was not something that my friends discussed. It was a very how I'm not finding a right word to describe it, but it was a very weird thing that was happening to me, and I couldn't discuss it with anyone. I couldn't share it with anyone. So it was the feeling was weird, is what I would say. Yeah.
I think I think that's the same thing with me also, because I didn't have the vocabulary,
Yeah.
and I don't think I received any education from my parents, in the sense parents or family. Did you? I mean, you have sisters and siblings. Now, did they receive education? Like, were they told about if there are women, females in your family? Were
Yeah.
they told at the right age that you need to protect yourself vis-a-vis as compared to you?
Yeah. So I come from a fairly, I mean, not that my family is very high educated or doing really well, but they did receive basic education. I mean, it's not like they were completely in dark, or they came from, very remote areas wherein education was not a privilege. So they did understand certain things. Obviously, yes, women were more protected in my family as any other family, but I don't. So even the protection of women was very patriarchal. Like, uh, it was like, don't do this, don't ask me why you should not do this, but just don't do this. So there was never, and with boys, so uh, there was no filter, or there was no guard for us. We were free to do whatever we could, and yeah, so women were fairly protected. My female cousins were fairly protected in the family, but they didn't have the right knowledge why certain restrictions have been put on them.
So basically, so even in my family, for that matter, there was this whole thing where my sister, when she was growing up, there weren't people allowed to sleep with her. the sense that even when she was a small child, when she used to sleep with other male members,
Yeah.
there used to be, there used to be someone or the other who was keeping a watch.
Yeah.
But when I slept with male members in my family, there was nothing, there was no restriction or anything of that kind.
Yeah.
And yes, it was patriarchal also, because uh, it was not about my sister was not given a reason why she was not asked to sleep anywhere, or why she was told that she's not supposed to go and sleep in front of someone.
Yeah.
But I was I there was restriction, but there was no reason. So even that restriction didn't come with education. Matlab, no one actually told my sister that you need to protect yourself because you will be sexually assaulted, or someone there was safe and unsafe education gyan that was given to them, or anything of that kind. It was more like you are not supposed to go in front of these uncles, or you're not supposed to spread your legs and sit. Even a young child was told that. But for us, for me, it was always a free, I was free to go anywhere. I was free to go and interact with anybody.
Yeah.
There was no restriction per se. But yeah, there were restrictions, but there was no explanation. So there was no sex education even over there, even when it came to females. Uh, I found it personally, Roshan, very restrictive, because when it started happening to me, first of all, I didn't understand what was happening to me. Same like you. I mean, there was hardly any understanding of the thing. And also, I went through, because my sexual assault was when my abuser was uh, you know he he had he penetrated me, and there was forceful sex that was happening. There was at no point that children in general would easily, they would not forget, but they would just not remember a few things. So I had this memory lapse that used to happen with me all the time, where I simply um, couldn't couldn't like I would wear my clothes back, and I wouldn't remember what happened to me like 3 minutes before. I would just forget. So what was your mechanism while that was happening? If there's something that you remember now, of did you remember that? Was it done in a way that you don't? Uh, was there grooming that was done, in the sense that were you groomed into this to believe that, okay, someone is doing something good to you, somebody is massaging you rather than abusing you? How did it happen in your case?
Uh, yeah. So, like, I mean, I have to admit that I have a very strong memory. So I do remember things, right? So I do remember, like everything else, I do remember parts of my abuse, as in where it started, how it happened. I don't remember exactly how it went through, but I do remember certain bits and parts of it. Uh, how I was not emotionally coerced into it. It was very abrupt and physical. For example, and I might get a bit graphical while describing this, but it all started with me sleeping. I was asleep, and I suddenly woke up with some sensation of somebody, trying to do something with my body. And I froze at that moment because that was the first time that I realized. And I felt weird because my family was around, everybody was around. It was an afternoon. It was a time when, in my family, afternoon naps are really important because we wake up early. So everybody was napping in the afternoon, which is why this was happening. And uh, yeah, when I realized it, I think I took a lot of time to understand what is happening to me rather than, uh, I mean, I should have made noise back then. I realize it now. But I think at that moment, I clearly remember I was shocked. I was trying to first understand what exactly is happening to me because I was asleep and I couldn't see anyone and I don't know who was doing what. I opened my eyes and I realized that there's this sensation on my body, but I was completely frozen because I don't know where it's coming from or who's behind me or who's doing it to me. So, yeah, I think in that moment I was frozen, but it was always physical. Nobody emotionally coerced me into it. Nobody said that here are two candies, come, if you want these candies, come with me. It was all very it was all very situational. If there's no one around, and if I am around that person, it is bound that those things are going to happen. So there was no emotional connect, or there was no emotional coercing, but it was just physical for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the case in my abuse. But I used to freeze because I never used to remember. I used to freeze every time this used to happen to me. Also, also the fact that it happened, uh, the fact that people found it to be absolutely normal that even as a child, as a male child, I could just go with anybody, any male member of my family. The idea that that a male child could get sexually assaulted didn't exist at all.
Right.
Did that is that something that you face as well?
Yeah. So for me, it was the person who was uh, perpetrating abuse was my family. So I didn't know who to go, because as a young child, you trust your family more than anyone else, right? And there were certain situations at my home that didn't let me speak up about it. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that was I think that was it, yeah.
Yeah, but that I think uh, even when I told my mother, and when my mother's first reaction was that of shock
Yeah.
when I explained to her in detail. I remember, I first told her when I was around 10 or 10 or 11 is when I told her for the first time. I told her that my uncle touches me here and there. I couldn't verbalize. I didn't know words like anus and penis or anything of that kind. So I just knew. I just said my uncle touches me, touches me, and I don't like it. Touches me here and there, and I don't like it. I said it in Tamil, and my mother said, "Okay, don't go close to your uncle." I mean, for her, it didn't. She just thought that this was some kind of boys playing with each other, kind of a thing. The second time when I told my mother, I was in more detail. I told my mother that I was bleeding from my anus, and that was around when I was like 13 or something. Around that time, my mother again told me that, oh, this is happening because you eat too many mangoes.
Yeah.
So, so even those signs were not picked up by my mother. And finally, when I told her in adequate detail, when I was around 18, that was when her first reaction was, "Oh my God, this happened to you. I never knew that boys need to be protected as well. You know,
Yeah.
if you were a girl, I would have not allowed this to happen to you."
Yeah.
So, uh, so when your family now that you publicly speak about it, obviously there are members of your family who know about it. Now, how is how is your immediate family reacted, um, and have they understood over a period of time, or are they still in denial?
They've understood it really well. But to me, it looks like, I mean, there hasn't been recognition of what they've understood. So they've understood it, and they're implementing it to the younger members of the family now. They're really careful around them, whether it's girls or boys or whoever. But I haven't received any uh, recognition for that, and I'm not asking for that recognition. All I'm saying is that when I came out about this, they just ignored it completely. Partly also because I was speaking it out, and it wasn't like they came to know about this through some other sources. It was me, uh, you know, it was me claiming my rights, my body, what happened to me in the past, and they, for them also it was new. So I give them the benefit of doubt, because it was a lot of information for them uh, to process when you're not well equipped to process that information. But they still have, I mean, everybody knows, but nobody's spoken about it. People think that I'm very brave, so just because I'm speaking up about it, it means that I must have overcome the trauma that's associated with it. So to me, uh, there is no consolence. But yeah, they're very careful about others for sure.
I was just going to come to the adjectives that I used, and I mean, to me, it gets after a point, I feel good about it, but it also gets irritating
Yeah.
when people just use adjectives like brave and wonderful and so courageous. Uh,
Yeah.
so how's I mean, it's I cannot deny that it feels nice at times, especially when I'm feeling when I'm extremely low or something. Somebody coming and telling me, "Oh, you're so brave and you're so nice." Without being modest, if I have to say, I sometimes like it also.
Yeah.
But there are times when that becomes your only identity,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Now there is, I mean, there is much more to me than being a survivor
Yeah.
of child sex abuse, and I don't, uh, and I find the word brave also uh, quite hypocritical because you wait for a person to fail and the person as a survival instinct the person just survives because that's all that the person could do
Yeah.
and that's an instinct which is there even in ants and reptiles.
Yeah.
Okay, so human beings obviously have that, and when we survive and when we speak about our story it suddenly becomes some people even move out of the realm and they don't do anything. They just call us brave and they go back to their same bigoted attitudes after that.
Yeah.
So I have a I have a love hate relationship with these adjectives that I use.
Yeah.
How is life changed for you, Roshan? I mean, what are the adjectives that I use for you? Brave to ek hai or kya?
Brave is one, definitely. A lot of people, uh, yeah, I mean, the I don't think there are many other adjectives used for me. Brave is
They're,
definitely one. When
they're not called attention seeking.
uh, I, I, no, I'm not. I'll tell you why I'm not called attention seeking. Uh, that's because I'm also possibly very busy with my life right now, right? And unfortunately, I don't give this issue a lot of priority in my life or work for it in my life. Uh, Having said that, I feel really unlucky in that manner, because I really want people to call me attention seeking. I would love that epithet. But yeah, people do call me, like some of the family members did think that I was doing this for attention. And uh, there's nothing, there's no truth to what I was uh, saying. So yeah, people will have their own like some of the people also, like when I was describing this to one of my roommates when I was in Delhi, they also said that you must have enjoyed it. And that's also a reaction that comes from people. And at the age of 10, you cannot it's very difficult for you to understand what pleasure is, what pain is. You have all these emotions in your mind, and you're scared to describe them to anyone because you're not allowed to speak about these things. You have no vocabulary for it, you have no emotion. So I think I bundled all of it up, and when I started speaking, i I felt about myself that I'm giving a chance to let this go and overcome this. So yeah, that was
Uh,
my.
Same here. I mean, I'm called attention seeking all the time because I uh, was was constantly speaking and I was constantly in the media
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is your ticket to fame.
Yeah.
ये निकालो और तुम क्या हो बताओ. I mean, and I have to constantly tell people that you know what, it's not. Now I've stopped telling people it's not what happened to me. It's what I did to my what it made me after that.
Yeah.
So I could have uh, been in the closet and not spoken about it about my abuse. What I chose to do with the truth that has happened to me. That is what defines me, not what happened to me. That defines me.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry to cut you, but I think it's very important to speak up because had you not spoken up, and I think I haven't told you this, but I got my inspiration to speak out about you after listening to you. And I don't know how many people have have had that inspiration. So you may feel that you're seeking attention while telling your story, but it's absolutely all right if somebody gets inspiration, if somebody understands that this may possibly be happening to them, or might have happened to them, and they decide to speak out or overcome that trauma, even if they don't choose to speak out, just by listening to people and by figuring things out in their own head, I think that makes a lot of difference, and that's always a great thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Roshan, visibility becomes so important, right? I mean, I'm sure that I get a lot of calls, uh, you know, uh, practically many calls in a day where people would come up and tell me things like, this has happened to their friend and their uncle and their relative. And then when you speak to them 3, 4 times, then you discover that it's happened to them.
Yeah.
So it's way too common, more common than what we imagine. And I knew the reason why I spoke up at that time was not because I wanted to change the world. I spoke up at that time, मैंने अपनी चुप्पी तोड़ी, simply because of the fact that the burden of holding on to my truth
Yeah.
was far more greater
Yeah.
than setting it free.
Yeah.
You know, the risk of and yes, people didn't react positively when I spoke up.
Yeah.
There were doubts on my life.
Yeah.
I recently went uh, you know I recently was for a court case. I had gone to Goa to attend a court case where the defense lawyer, because I was a witness in a rape case, and the defense lawyer, just as they show in films, he got into different conversations, and I'd actually said that, I know that this person has been sexually assaulted. I don't know for sure, but I know that this particular complainant has been sexually assaulted because I'm a survivor and I could sense this from this behavior of hers. That's what I had said. Then they said, "Oh, how can you prove? I mean, are you really a sex abuse survivor? And then what exactly happened to you?" So just as it happens in uh, happens in courtrooms in our films, it happened in real life, where the onus of proving that it happened to you lies on you, and it's not possible. I mean, I don't even have scars in my body.
Yeah.
I was sexually assaulted. I was raped from the age of 7 till the age of 18, and now I'm 41. So I'm 23 years. And from 23 years, I've been speaking about the issue of child sexual abuse. So I don't even have this thing, but there is so much of disbelief. There is so much of the onus of proving the truth comes on you all the time. Uh, so what if I face this even today, where people would come and tell me that we don't know that this happened to you really,
Yeah.
because you just would have gotten into Satyamev Jayate because no one really saw this and you did this for publicity.
Yeah.
So does I mean, what really goes through you when someone doubts the authenticity of your story, of your life story?
Um, yeah, I mean, I really don't care if obviously there have been people, because I've spoken publicly about it at various forums. Uh, but yeah, I, I mean, it's upon them. If they don't want to believe the story, they, they shouldn't. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't believe the story. Nobody is, had a very defensive, uh, had a very defensive argument with me, saying that they don't believe my story. On the contrary, I've always been very privileged for that matter. I've always been in spaces where uh, people are more understanding, they're more aware, they're more educated, which made telling my story it made it very easier, because people were very receptive, and I really consider myself lucky, just to have these opportunities, these places in life where when I tell my story, people are receptive to me. I have spoken about it to a lot of my friends, almost all my close friends, because once you start being friends with someone, you start talking about their lives. This is a very important part of my life, right? So I make sure that they know this about my life as well. And touch wood, all my friends have been really, really supportive about them. In fact, they've opened up about their uh, instances where they felt that they were violated. So yeah, I think I've only received negative reactions from some of my family members who thought that, I might be doing this for attention. But again, I really don't consider those people important enough to take their reactions to my heart or feel strong about it. So that's
Same here. I mean, now yes, it's taken me time. Like I was not like this before. I mean, I was completely broken previously when any time that people actually spoke about me negatively, it used to affect me really badly. Um, and and because I was so visible publicly, the reaction was uh, that simply means that every second day I would feel bad because every second day there would be a Facebook post or in those days Orkut, some message on Orkut where there would be some slander message about me. Also, the fact that uh, you know it's so important that we meet people who are like us,
yeah.
uh, and I had no one. I had no one. I had met no male survivor. I had read no article of a person who has been. I had read articles about child sex abuse, uh, where somebody was raped or something of that kind, but there were no names. There were no there were no locations. There was nothing that was given. It was just that something happened in North India and something happened in South India or the East or the West, or something happened in America where someone was running this child abuse racket kind of a thing. But there was not a single name of any survivor that was mentioned. No one who actually came out and spoke about it. Like if you have to speak about sexual assault of women, okay, not that it's a good thing that we have these names, but you can think about Bhavri Devi, you can think about Suzette Jordan, you can think about so many names that that come, uh, that come out
Yeah.
in but there was no reference at all. How important is it for people to have this reference point? Because both of us, like I have people opening up to me, you have people opening up to you, and it is the sailing in the same boat syndrome that people open up to you for. Probably, I'm not, I don't think I've been able to help everyone,
Yeah.
except for the fact that I'm able to join a same thread and make them feel at home. That you know what, तेरे को दर्द हो रहा है, मुझे दर्द हो रहा है, and we both have been sailed through the same boat,
Yeah.
sailed through the same rough waters. How often have you come across people coming and telling you that they have been sexually assaulted, and what does it make you feel?
Very often. uh, it's not like they come up to me abruptly and tell me, oh, this happened to me, or, oh, I've seen your posts. And uh, it's very rare. There are instances where people do connect with me online, but very rare. It mostly happens when I'm with friends or opening up to somebody. And believe me, almost, and I might be wrong on this figure, but almost 80% of my friends who I've shared this with have come back to me and said that, these things did happen with us too when we were a child. Obviously, the intensity at which it happens may differ from person to person. Somebody may get abused just once in their life, or the instant may be one. Somebody, for some people, it might be a prolonged period of time. But like almost all my friends who have opened up to have confessed that this happened to them also, which is, which for me, I feel is, I obviously feel a lot very bad when I hear about such things. Uh, I feel I feel worse for them than me. I don't know why. That might just be uh, my shortcoming. Uh, but I do feel very bad for them, and I I don't know. I just guide them if they need help, that is, or if they ask me for any help, or uh, connect them to any counselors, or if they need any professional help, I step in and I do that for them. Otherwise, I just tell them that I'm always here for moral support. And I do remember those people who confessed their secrets, dark secrets, with me. I do feel a sense of connection with them, just like I feel that with you. And I just want to say that I'm always here for them and for anyone else for that matter. So that's my
And I think one of the things that male survivors could do for other male survivors is just listen to them. I mean, there are, for us, it doesn't, I mean, do you see that there was anger, there were these reserves of anger that was within you.
Yeah.
It was within me,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I used to use it in various other forms. Activism became not because I wanted to be an activist. I never wanted to be one.
Yeah.
That became my release point. I thought that rather than rather than anything else, if I do something else, if I do something to uplift someone, it is going to do good for me. I mean, it came from a very, very, very selfish point.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I opened up because you know the burden of holding to the truth was too much. But later, I started speaking because it was every time I kind of bent and pulled another person up, I went up further
Yeah.
out of the thing. So I did it with a very selfish intent.
Yeah.
So, but there are these times also, Roshan, where I have felt that this has, um, you know, I've started assuming कि, um, कि probably, the ones who abused me were men. Okay. So I was never a misogynist ever in my life, but I was definitely a misandrist.
Yeah.
I never liked men.
Yeah.
Okay. All through my childhood, I used to get these. I used to be generally angry when I was around men. I used to love being with women. Uh, I used to discuss with things with women. I don't know why, but my female friends used to even change their clothes in front of me, and it didn't matter to them because they just knew that nothing. I would not look at them from that angle. Nothing to do with my sexuality, but just like that. So I was a misandrist. I never liked men, and I used to loathe men. I used to, in fact, hate my father and my other family members who were my uncles, who were not my abusers, but my uncles in my family. Did you go through that phase? What was your relationship with masculinity and
Yeah.
men?
I think I have to still admit that I'm misandrous. I still hate men. Well, not I don't hate men, but I do think men come from a certain. Uh, they do have certain privileges over others, and they do exercise this privilege in order to make their survival easy. Uh, I I was a hardcore misandrist a couple of years ago, but I've started coming to terms with it, right? Because uh, and this actually happened when I studied at Ashoka. I had a different perspective, saying that uh, maybe uh, men are victims of patriarchy too. This is what I realized when I started studying at Ashoka. And not like a lot of what they do is, yes, it's definitely wrong, but I don't think they come from a place where they understand how it affects others. So which is why I think education is really, really important. And I think once we bring that to the table, I have seen there are some nice men in my life as well, and there have been some really not really awful, but like a little bit awful women in my life too. So I don't think it's got to do with gender. Yeah, definitely women are way better than men. I would say that. Uh, but yeah, I think men need to learn that they are victims of patriarchy too, and their behavior doesn't help them as well. They may feel very powerful while uh, while being in that role, but eventually it doesn't really help anyone. They
and
suffer as much as women do. Not as much
and
as women do, but they do suffer too. Yeah,
yeah, I don't think it's comparable, but yeah, it is. They suffer.
they suffer.
And that's precisely the college boy induction ragging wala syndrome jo hota hai, where the young student is ragged and they make an example. So when this student goes to a higher class, the student also starts ragging other people,
Right.
right? So that's precisely what explains how many male survivors, and also female survivors, get inducted into this practice of being abusers also.
Yeah.
So there is this common again there is this blanket understanding that men who get sexually assaulted would automatically start preying on other children.
Yeah.
So that is another assumption that people have targeted me with,
Yeah.
saying that, uh, and to the extent that there was a time when I used to take tuitions of young children, and I used to ensure that I keep the door open every time. Like I had to be mentally conscious every time
Yeah.
because I started speaking about child sex abuse, and then there were these rumors that every survivor of child sex abuse would abuse other children.
Yeah.
Was there any point in my life? Yes, there was the point when I wanted to take. I didn't want to take revenge and do things with other children,
Yeah.
but I definitely wanted to uh, take revenge on where I used to see that child within me.
Yeah.
Uh, Metaphorically speaking, I used to always remember. I used to get these nightmares about me getting sexually abused, but it was not me. It was that young boy. I used to remember the face of the boy who was getting sexually assaulted. So I wanted to destroy that child. So what I started doing was I went into. So I used to have random sex with people. I have gone to public loos and had sex over there. I have gone to generally. Well, by the time I started opening up, in fact, I didn't face problems when I was getting sexually assaulted. Like I was not aware of the problem, but when I started revealing it, I just wanted to destroy my body. So I used to go to public urinals. I've had sex with random people whom I would not. Luckily, I didn't, except for pubic lice. I didn't get any venereal disease,
Yeah.
but I definitely could have got some STD around that time. I got myself tested, so luckily I don't have any. But that is the whole phase where I wanted to destroy myself because I used to get these recurrent thoughts, and I didn't remember all these thoughts in sequence, complete sequence. I used to remember one thought, and then I wanted to dissociate with that thought.
Yeah.
So I used to go and do something that used to make me feel even worse.
Yeah.
So I never took to drugs. I never took to alcohol,
Yeah.
but I took to this self-destruction from a sexual standpoint. And also, I used to have these obsessive connections with some of my friends. Uh, they used to kind of become my, uh, uh, become. I think I have some of it even now, where I used to cling on to them.
Yeah.
Uh, did you face any repercussions of, and do you face any right now as well?
Yeah, I think uh, so. I wasn't revengeful per se. Like I didn't want to go and take revenge on my perpetrators. I was in a very nice place to be honest, but I was always sad that why me? I always had this question that uh, why did it have to be me? Because when you come to terms with it, it's very difficult to put yourself back in that situation because you realize what happened to you as an adult, right? That this was wrong, and then you think of yourself as a child. You don't think of yourself as an adult when this is happening to you, and you feel really bad. So I felt really bad that why was I in that place? Why me? So I didn't want to take any revenge, or I had nothing to do with my perpetrator. I forgiven them. It's and I think I realized that when I forgive them, you move on easier. But I did definitely thought why me, and the impact of it manifested in different ways. For example, what you're talking about, risky sexual behavior. Yes, certainly I did, uh, engage in uh, risky sexual behavior. Uh, I I did do certain things in life that were not very safe things to do. So harming yourself, and it wasn't from a point of it wasn't from a point of view that I'm doing this because I want to harm myself. It was just I think it was just that
To
nobody took.
stop the train of thoughts?
Yeah, I just went ahead without thinking too much, without thinking and that's also because lack of education, right? uh when I did come out with my story, I didn't realize the importance of therapy. I didn't go to therapy, so at that time I was still indulging in certain behaviors that were not very safe uh, to indulge in. So definitely yes, I did dabble with uh, debauchery for that matter, like whether it's alcohol, whether it's smoking. So these things did come into my life, but again I would like to say that I'm very privileged. I come from a place where I've constantly been given opportunities to improve. So I was able to
So,
seek therapy and keep that behind in life. Yeah.
so I think you spoke about forgiveness. I think forgiveness is again something which is I don't think I've forgiven.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
subjective.
you know,
Depends.
I think I've not forgiven, I've not forgotten, but I have moved on in the sense that I don't want to harp on uh, the same the same thing. If possible, I would take that was the first step towards my healing, where the destruction of another person
Yeah.
didn't become the motto of my life. I mean, how but we all survivors think about our healing processes are different. For me, my healing process was definitely about um you know about the fact that I don't hold on. I'm not vengeful anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, I was never vengeful at any point of my life. I would even take my abuser to a psychologist. I've taken one of my abusers to a psychologist. I've actually held his hand and taken him to a psychologist. So I think that's that. But I see a lot of lasting uh, impressions of that. I had a lot of problem when it came to my sexuality.
Yeah.
I'm gay, and I wasn't. I first thought that I was bisexual,
Yeah.
and that was an impact that it left, where I had this aversion to sex, um, and I went out with girls. I couldn't. Uh, I couldn't. I didn't feel sexually aroused with girls at all. But there is this constant. There was this constant thought that I had that has abuse made me homosexual. I mean, I had this thought for the longest time. Also, from the considering the era that I spoke up, like 97, 98 is when I started speaking up about my abuse. So around that time, the conversation about homosexuality was also very distinct. But I used to feel attracted towards men. I used to like Tarzan and not Jane, and every time, and I used to have this hatred because I used to think that abuse has actually made me homosexual. So my relationship with any kind of arousal was very conflicted. Um, so uh, so uh, so that was one thing that happened, and also the other thing that happened with me was this. Uh, Even when I used to be sexually active with my partners, there were definitely a few things that I could do. There were a few things that I would completely be taken aback. Like if somebody would touch me on my behind, or touch me on my anal area, I would completely lose my erection. So it was almost like a response to a stimuli. So it took me a lot of time to first of all realize that I'm gay because I'm gay. And though there is sexual behavior that could get impacted because of your sexual assault, but my sexual orientation, but what I felt from within, even the nocturnal dreams that I used to get when boys get erection and then they get sperm oozing from their penises and without any stimulation, when you used to get nightfalls, that's the word. When you used to get nightfalls, it was always men in my dreams. But every time I woke up with a sticky underwear, I used to hate myself for it because I thought of a man.
Yeah.
So I had this huge conflict, and it took me meeting a lot of other male survivors who are proud heterosexuals,
Yeah.
uh, and 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 I saw that number to be much more than those who are homosexual.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the homosexual community, we live in this small vacuum, and we think that everyone we are meeting is a survivor. So we think that everyone. I said no. Every child is possibly a survivor, and you're meeting homosexual men who have also, as children, gone through this thing. But I know more of heterosexual men.
Yeah.
So, what is your experience about something like
I
this?
at that point I would like to say, I think just like homosexual people are just vocal about this. Like I said, a lot of my friends confess that they were also abused as kids, and they all self-identify as heterosexuals. So I really don't think that sexuality's got anything to do with abuse. I think all children are vulnerable, irrespective of who they are, what they are. Everybody is vulnerable and everybody is capable of perpetrating abuse. We have to realize that we have to make ourselves aware of what is right, what is wrong, and we have to hold ourselves responsible for our actions. That is that is all uh, I would like to say. I don't think children are capable of. Having said that, I don't think children are capable of making wise decisions. So if you are an adult in the room, then the onus of uh, then the own like the responsibility of the space is on you if you're an adult in that room. So children can't make right decisions. All children are vulnerable. Everybody can perpetrate abuse, whether it's a man, it's a woman, it's a transgender person. Everybody and anyone can perpetrate abuse. And yeah, we all have to be well aware and do better.
I think, I think, I think though, but I have a different, not a different understanding, a variable understanding of the same thing. That I think queer children, children who have something to hide, and they think that they're already grappling with the fact that their feelings are different as compared to other people, or queer children with terms to gender or with terms to sexuality. They understand that they're different, and when they're different and they are more in the in a shell kind of a thing, so the chances of them getting sexually assaulted is much more,
Yeah.
because you anyways have something to hide. So that's why I think when spaces where there's less education, which is of course cis males, or children who are queer, uh, they also, I mean, you completely sometimes give, and that's why we meet a lot of, as a gay man, when I meet a lot of uh, people nowadays, everyone, you see many people who come and say this also, that I was sexually abused, but I loved it,
Yeah.
and then I would be like, now I wouldn't go and tell the person, no, you have to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to that extent and tell the person, because if the person is okay with it, okay, and it's not bothering the person, I don't have to gain some happiness in actually making the person feel bad about it. But there is this constant thing that people start associating their sexual abuse and their sexuality.
Yeah.
Stuff. And I personally feel that you grow up to be the best version of who you are, and if you feel conflicted about it, then go to a counselor. But you are what you say your truth is. It's not what the world defines your truth as. So that's what I feel. I think what helped in my after I think understanding my own self helped me in the healing. It was a healing process by itself. Also, speaking to, I never went through counseling until I was 38 years of age. I was in fact asking people to go to a counselor, but I'm the typical Indian thing, जो सलाह जल्दी देता है मगर लागू खुद पे नहीं करता है. So I never went to a counselor until I was 38, which was like 3 years before.
Yeah.
But for me, I think speaking to my dog helped quite a lot.
Yeah.
Pet therapy helped me quite a lot. What was your healing process, if there is something like a healing process?
Uh, I don't. Yeah, so I don't exactly have a healing. I'm so unlucky. I don't have a pet, so that's something that I would really want in life because I have just healed because of all the love that I've received from people, and I again comes from a place of privilege to be around people who love you, who always support you, who always think, and that may not be the case with everyone, and you know people may not find supporting loving people at every point in their lives, which is okay, which is when you have to find out alternate ways of healing. Like I said, therapy is very, very important. Even if you have a strong support system, I think you should, if you feel comfortable with it, I think you should seek therapy because those people are professionally trained to help you and finding the right kind of therapists. Uh, so that's something that's really important. Uh, Again, then, like I spoke about forgiveness, right? Forgiveness helped me uh, move over things. Uh, I also I also realize that there are people like I have everything in life. I have good family. I have good. I'm working in a pandemic. There are people far less privileged than us, So I think my uh, uh, I haven't done anything for them yet, but I think that sense of responsibility, like when I have stability in life, I would want to go back and help people, keeps me going because uh, that's something that's really important. We all live with each other, and we all support each other. So I think love and kindness is something that will help all of us get by.
Roshan, I personally feel living your life truly and unabashedly is the truest and strongest form of activism.
Yes.
I think the fact that you open up and you share your story is by itself a binding factor for other people
Yes.
to find that solace. Because I know how much I have struggled to
Yes.
not find that one person. It's a sad thing. It sounds sadistic also that you
Yes.
want to meet another person who has gone through something like that. But actually finding that person is very beneficial because you suddenly know that you're not alone in this whole
Yeah.
crisis.
I don't think it's a sad thing because that's the reality of the world we live in, right? Because uh, we know it happens, and it happens in the best of homes. It happens in the most remote places on earth. It happens in cities. It happens in rich families, poor families, everywhere. And I had one more point to add here. I think queer people are sexualized, even as children, even as adults. When you're in a room full of uh, self-identified heterosexual people and you claim your identity there, whether you're flamboyant, whether you're not flamboyant, but if people know that you're queer, you're going to be sexualized. Because I think it's just a lens that people have that once you're queer, all your life is just about sex, which is not true, right? Heterosexuals, even for heterosexuals, all their lives are about sex. They do
Yeah,
indulge in sex as much as queer people do. Everybody does. But it's just the fact that अ, अपना छुपाना है और दूसरों का
yeah,
it's very sad.
yeah.
It's very
I
sad.
think I think that's something that's a reality of LGBT lives, queer lives actually, because
Just as women,
definitely people want to know what is there, how I have sex, more than what I'm doing in
yeah,
life in
yeah,
general.
yeah.
Uh, so I think somebody has asked a private question where about forgiveness. I said how important forgiveness is. I think I personally think like I don't think I have forgiven my abuser, and but yeah, I have parked my past in my past. So it's almost like I don't want to, and I don't want to deny my life. Ever in my life, I don't want to deny the truth of my abuse.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to ever say that I was not sexually abused. I don't want to forget tomorrow. I don't want to wake up and forget that I was sexually abused at some point in my life.
Yeah.
Um, so so that's that. But when it comes to forgiveness, there was this small incident that um, because I will not take names because I know that there are too many bloodhounds and everyone wants to do this revenge. And every time there is any kind of child sex abuse case that is reported, the first reaction that we see is that of, chalo, let's cut the person's penis or let's go and burn the person or capital punish though, and everything would be sorted. There was something not very recently, like 4 5 years before that happened with me, where I was at one of the railway stations, and I was at the railway station, and somebody came and patted me in the station. I looked back, and there was this elderly man who was there. I got down the train, and because I've had survivors of all age groups coming and speaking to me, my first instance, I thought that, okay, this is an elderly man, probably he's a survivor of child sex abuse. Because I've also had men who were like 85 years old who have called me up and told me that they suddenly remembered what happened to them when they were 9 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I had this man who patted me, and I got down, and while I hugged him, he started telling me things about it, about his son, who was gay, and apparently his son was gay, and I was the last call dialed on his son's phone before his son uh, took his life. And this man was crying, and he kept telling me that, you know what, मुझे मेरे कर्मों की सजा मिल गई. What I've done a lot of wrong things, and I've got uh, I'm facing the brunt of it and all of that. And I kept telling him, I said, no, your son would have come out to you. It just didn't work. We all go. I was trying to, and then in the passing, I also told him that I'm also like your son. So he said, please don't say that. You don't know. Uh, I, I've done a big mistake. So I said, and when I kept digging in further, he revealed the name of my uncle who had sexually assaulted me. He revealed the name of the place that I was sexually assaulted. So I asked him, "How do you know?" Then he came out to me as one of the one of the abusers of mine, which I didn't remember, but he remembered. I didn't know whether I didn't know words like forgiveness or anything, but I was old enough to understand the gravity of the situation, and it was a little upsetting for me. So what I did was I asked him to go and call me the next day. The next day I met him and I took him to a counselor. And then he took me to his family, got me introduced to his family, came out to his entire family that he had done something to me. And I was able to uh, ensure that he goes through counseling, but at the same time, ensure that he does something with life. Now, I didn't know. For me, it was not forgiveness or anything of that kind. When he asked me why am I behaving kindly to him, when he was insisting that he wants to face the music of the police, uh, I just I just told him I can't hate the person who is the person today for what the person was yesterday. I mean, yesterday he was a different human being. Today he is a different human being. I don't know if this is forgiveness, if there's any way that I could define I have forgotten or I've forgiven him, but I have just let the past rest in the past. I have not let the past come to my present.
Yeah.
That is something. And if there is somebody who I see abusing a child right now, I will go and stop it. I might get violent also. I might call the police also. I might ensure that the police is this thing. But in the end, I will leave the survivor to decide for themselves, except if the survivor is a child.
Yeah.
Uh, for themselves, what defines recovery for them. I will not define recovery for them. What is your understanding of this, Roshan?
Yeah, I think mandatory reporting is something that we should all stand by. We should all protect children around us. And on recovery, like I said, find your support system. If it's hard to, uh, again, I've used this word many times in this chat today, but again, I'll say therapy is a privilege. You pay for it and uh, you get by things. So if you're not able to access therapy, uh, find a support system. I had access to therapy at Ashoka for free, which is why I could, seek continuous therapy and get past a lot of things in my life. There, there are certain organizations that do free therapy, but it may not be always available. Find your support system, whether it's people, whether it's activities, whether it's work that you do, whether it's animals, service to animals. Find your support system. I think that's important. And yes, just like any other trauma, it's important to get past what has happened to you.
Yeah. I
If it
think I think but you can never, and I think there is never full recovery. People have
Yeah.
this thing about how can you fully recover?
Yeah.
You can't you can't recover you, there's nothing like recovery from your past. It is only a full understanding that this has happened to you.
Yeah.
And I do visit those traumatic events sometimes in my life. I mean, there are times when I get these flashes. Now I know how to deal with it. So I get those flashes. It sometimes gives me energy
Yeah.
in the sense that only when you're pushed to the ground will you come out with the same velocity at times. Not that I don't mean that everyone has to be pushed to the ground, but what I mean to say is there are times when you get those flashes and you can divert it into something, some positive outlet. I have not seen something like 100% recovery. And if 100% recovery is that I will never get upset because of this incident, I probably will deal with my truth in a more affirmative, more positive way. But therapy is a lifelong process. Arpan offers therapy. Arpan.org.in. And there are other, but more than that, I'm really happy that you stressed about your support system, which is important. And that support system, because you don't really go to a therapist, pele, you first go to your friends, you
Yeah.
first go to your family, and that's where you become. That's where you go for this thing. And as one of the commenters have also said, it's also important that when you're seeking therapy, you go to a queer affirmative therapist who's a sex positive therapist also,
Yeah.
where it is not. And that's why I used to have a problem with the whole word bad touch. When it was good touch and bad touch, uh, I used to I thought that it was more important to call it safe and unsafe. uh, so i think uh, I think therapy is important. And also it's sad that we have to have good counselors and bad counselors as an example. But yes, go to a good counselor or go to a good organization which is also queer affirmative, because many survivors, many male survivors of child sexual abuse grapple with sexuality related
Yeah.
uh, might not be uh, just that whether they are gay or whether they are not gay. It could mean a lot of other things. That it could be about the process of having sex. It
Yeah.
could be about aversion about having sex even when you are heterosexual. So that's something that's there, and that's why I think uh, uh, details of arpan.org arpan are there in arpan.org.in, and you could get details over there. And I think that is incredibly important. Fix yourself an appointment, go and speak to therapists. I know that they're queer affirmative. I know that they have uh, counseling which doesn't discriminate on the basis of caste or religion, uh, or economic status. And I think that's incredibly important. And finally, what about how is this panned out in your relationships in terms of romantic relationships? I've had I've had more breakups than makeouts in my life. Uh, how is it panned out in your life?
It hasn't panned out really well, to be honest. Uh, yeah, I think a lot of it is impacted, right? My identity, my past, the trauma that I've faced, any other trauma that I might have faced in life. I think everything affects the kind of person you are. Uh, in terms of relationship, yes, I've had bad relationships. I've had good people as well that I haven't respected in my life, and I should have. So, uh, yeah, I think it is all about how you cope up with certain things. It will have impact on your relationships as well, and relationship with everyone, your family, your friends, your closed ones, your partner. Uh, it just it's just about how you handle yourself and navigate through these situations. It's hard, but you have to get through it. And I'm sure if some survivor does think that it gets hard, always remember that there are always good things coming out after hard phases in your life. So yeah, good things will await you. Work constantly towards it, and that's all I would say. Be
And
better on your part.
and I think therapy is especially for male survivors, it's a constant.
Yeah,
It is not that people think recovery is a destination.
yeah,
Like I have come here and I've recovered. तो इसके बाद मेरे को कुछ अभी कोई चीज की जरूरत नहीं है, मेरे को कभी अफेक्ट नहीं करेगा.
yeah,
The truth is that you can never 100% recover from anything, from any trauma. All that you can learn is to react to to the trauma and put the trauma to rest, and you'll know your coping mechanisms would get better. You don't recover. I mean, how do you recover from past? I mean, there's nothing like it has occurred, and your past will always remain your past. So, it has affected my relationships quite a lot. In the beginning, I had relationships with women. I had only sexual. I had no emotional connect with them. Uh, it didn't, it didn't go well. Then I have this. Um, I think my vulnerability shows when I get into very close relationships, and I kind of cling on to people a little too tightly
yeah,
at times,
yeah,
which is something that I've seen in other survivors also. we cling on to people very tightly because we think that uh, these are the only people who will understand us,
Yeah.
either emotionally or even if it comes to sexual compatibility with a person. You think that, oh, this person is behaving. We start giving credit to a person a little too much at times. So I have credited people with, I don't need to be thankful to someone for having sex with me, but I have sent people like three pages of poems because the sex was good. And the person would be like, okay, is this person is in love with me? It was hooked up.
Yeah.
So I've had instances of that kind where the 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 humility went to some other level where I thought that I have to be grateful for people
Yeah.
who show general courtesy or who just show general fantasy of me.
Yeah.
So that and that's something that I'm learning. So therapy, I think I'm taking therapy now, and I think I'll be taking therapy when I'm like 70. If
Yeah.
I don't want to live till 70, but yeah, till I'm 60 maybe.
Yeah.
I will be taking therapy, and I've had like it has affected my relationships, uh, where uh, where the kind of people I get attracted to are basically people who have a child in them, and I later realized that probably I'm hunting for the childhood that I have lost in them.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. We all get attracted to a kind of people, but I'm just kind of uh, safeguarding myself with therapy, but that I don't harm myself in the process.
Right.
So as you're dating people you date, do you see a pattern in the kind of people you date because of your being a male survivor?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that does exist. Uh, I am I am looking like uh, I'm mostly looking for people uh, who are mature, who can take possibly uh, care for me and uh, be there for me. But that's also expecting a lot from someone who you call your
Yes.
partner, right? Which is what I'm realizing with time that uh, yeah, you just have to treat your partner as another human being, friend. Uh, you have to make your own boundaries. You have to ensure that that person has their boundaries, and you have to respect everyone just like the way you would like yourself to be respected. So that's something that I'm learning.
How much have, like, for me, one of the, now I would have, uh, if I was born in this century and I didn't have to go through child sex abuse at the time that I went through child sexual abuse, I think it was I would have had I would have been in an advantage. I mean, there's so many videos that are there about child sexual abuse and male child sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Also, we have POXO now,
Yeah.
Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which is gender neutral.
Yeah.
It has a thing of mandatory reporting, which is not mandatory reporting from the child perspective, say, but हमेशा mandatory reporting possible नहीं होता. मतलब in the sense that what if the child has been abused by the parent? I mean, if you're going to send the child to a correctional home, it is far more horrible than leaving the child with the parent themselves.
Yeah.
So I think mandatory reporting. I have some issues with POXO, but we have that law. Some films, I think one of the films that is extremely close to me is uh, is this is Highway. I think Highway was something uh, that Alia Bhatt's character was exactly what I think what I was going through when I was a child. I lived in this dual world, the
Yeah.
world that I was sexually assaulted, the world I was not. Uh, so also there is this other film. Um, it's called La Mala Educación,
Yeah.
which is Pedro Almodovar's film, and that was another film which speaks about being queer and this thing. Were there films, and these all are films about, of course, I Am, which Arpan was this thing, and it's one of the stories is based on my life, uh, inspired by my life, not exactly based. Um, so So basically, now we have these films and this thing. Is there any film or something that you've seen uh, that has had an impact on you?
I'm not a film person, to be honest, but I've had books being given to me by people who care for me, who have the books have helped me understand my situation better and grow towards it. So there are a lot of books in market right now that may help you understand a situation better. And yeah, I think that's something that I've referred to. That and lived experiences of people have helped me.
Also, yeah. Also, there's some examples. There's a film called The Tale. I have
Yeah,
not seen that film,
yeah.
and I don't know how to pronounce this. There's an Instagram page that someone has recommended, which is
Ian Morrigan.
Morrigan. Clementine Morrigan. Clementine Morrigan. Clementine Morrigan. Morrigan.
Yeah.
So that's an Instagram page that someone has recommended. So I think that becomes uh, Ponmagai Vandal. So Ponmagai Vandal is another Tamil film. Uh, I don't know if there are any other Hindi films which speak about child sexual abuse in a more poignant way. Uh, there are some films here and there. There was this. I don't remember. There are so many films that come to my mind, but I don't quite remember the names of those films, Abhi. But the two films that Kahani 2, yes, Kahani 2, Monsoon Wedding. Pooja Taparia is saying, I'm taking her name openly. So, Kahani 2 and Monsoon Wedding are definitely two films.
Yeah.
Vidya, by the way, is I have interacted with Vidya Balan, and Vidya Balan is espousing the cause of child sex abuse awareness, and how important it is, Roshan, that you think that celebrities, Kalki, of course, is another person. Kalki Kekla is another person who speaks very openly about being a survivor of child sex abuse. Uh, um, so, how important do you think cinema and cinema stars become? Even Anurag, for that matter, Anurag Kashyap is a survivor. So, how important is cinema um, that you see?
I think every actor should be appreciated. Uh, just because cinema and movie stars are so widely accepted and widely known, it becomes all the more important on their part to raise their voice on this matter, because their voice matters and people listen to them, which is why it's important for them to come out. But no pressure again. Like, if it makes them uncomfortable, they don't have to speak about it. It's just that they have that space where they could benefit the society with where they are, which is why them supporting this cause becomes very, very important. And I really appreciate all the names that you've spoken about right now for coming forward. It's not easy at all. It's sharing one of the most darkest secrets of your life. It's never easy, especially for a celebrity whose public image is at stake, right? So I think
and
it's
and not just that. I mean, if I get questions about doubts about my sexuality, like one of the if you go to Google and you say Harish plus Iyer, the word that is searched most often is Harish Iyer uncle. That is the most searched this thing. So people want to figure out who my uncle is who abused me. They want to go and beat him up or whatever. And there are so many people who are also doubting the authenticity of my story. Okay, so imagine if it's a celebrity, it becomes like 3-4 times more. So I think all these Nightmare and Elm Street, Doubt, Spotlight, of course. Spotlight is about a legal battle um, that was there. Silence is a Korean film. Boys Don't Cry speaks about queerism uh, and being the survivor. Perks of Being a Wallflower is another very important. So I found it far more experimentative also. I think films, to me I think there's no greater sin than making a bad film, and that's why I think cinema has got its own importance, um, in this whole thing. I think the way children get sexualized in cinema also,
Yeah.
it creates so much of an impact. So I've always had a problem with these dance shows, not that children should not dance, but uh, at least children need to know that when you're saying Sarkailo Khatiyan Jada Lage, have the guts to tell the child what that song really means. The child knows about it and then dances to it, I have no problem.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you are creating, you know that it's something bad, you've created this illusion. And what is dupatte ke niche chupa ke rakha hai, uthaun to hangama ho. Young children dancing to this. Okay, I mean, you should be open to say कि जो दुपट्टे के नीचे छुपा के रखा है उसको हम breast कहते हैं या स्तन कहते हैं. I mean, if you are able to have this open conversation and then the child dances to it, then it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
But you don't have an open conversation and you sexualize the whole thing without adding science to it, I think that creates a lot of issues. And that's definitely something that we should work at stopping at some point. Also, there I have received some private messages about highway, where people have spoken about how highway has impacted them. Um, you know that it's been cathartic when highway was kind of this thing. So I think it is important in general for us as a society, as you said, that celebrities go through even more this thing, and but we need some active voices, and I'm happy that Vidya is doing that. I'm happy that uh, Kalki is doing that. Whoever can do that is doing that, but no pressure on people uh, who don't. Who don't do that also. I mean, there's nothing like you're a celebrity, so you have to have your public life in the public domain. So it takes a lot of pressure. Um, so so that's it. If there are any questions, Roshan, you want to add something? Have you missed anything? Do you want to add something?
Um, no, not really. I think it was a good conversation, and it's always nice to have people, uh, supporting the ideas that you believe in. So thank you to everyone for coming here and listening to us. It only helps us. I know it's very selfish, but it only helps us get better. And I just speak for myself. I would really uh, like to help. I'm not capable of though, but I'd really like to help anyone in any way that's possible. And I'm sure Harish is always available. So yeah, that's it.
So,
It's a good
so
time.
Roshan and I just wanted to add, Roshan and I are listeners. Okay, we are not counselors. I mean, I'm doing a course in relationship therapy now, so I could possibly manage that aspect of counseling once I complete the course. But we are listeners, and the least that anyone could do is listen, and listen without judgment, and listen without wanting, without the eagerness to be a hero by offering an advice. There are times when people, especially survivors of child sex abuse, they get these recurrent thoughts, bar. Many survivors do. And when they do, it's important that you're just beside them and don't tell them that, oh, I've spoken to you, I've spoken about this like 20 times before. Listen to them the 21st time. Your patience by itself will be the biggest healer for them. So if you can't heal, and don't try offering advice if you don't, because you're not qualified to offer advice. There are times when like uh, so I've got dysthymia. So I suffer from uh, prolonged depressions for a prolonged period, or periods of depression, mild depression, but prolonged periods of time. So many of us survivors have been left with, because of holding on to that trauma for so long. It is many a times left us with clinical conditions also. So it becomes incredibly important for us to seek counseling. And when we listen to people, and as much as we can listen to people, the trauma that they don't have to hold the truth, even if they're repeating it for the 20,000th time, just listen to them patiently and do not try curing them. Please take them to a counselor, take them to a professional, take them to Arpan, and where there is counseling available. Don't try offering advice when you are incapable of offering advice, when you don't have a degree. Just listen. Just listen, share your own experience if you'd want to. But don't try to offer advice, especially in cases where people are incredibly suicidal. Don't offer advice. Just listen to them and slowly and steadily take them to a trusted counselor, a counselor whom you would trust with a case like that. So the Arpan helpline is 981 90 86444. 981 90 86444. Arpan.org.in is the website. There's also a feedback form, so do fill in that. But if you still have questions for a couple of minutes, we wouldn't mind answering those.
I have a hard stop at 5:30.
You have a hard stop at 5:30?
Yeah. So I will have to take your leave. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Arpan, Red Dot.
Thank you, Roshan.
And everyone for joining. And
everyone is saying thank you in the comment section.
Yeah. I hope to catch up soon. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
No problem.